Improve your cheap or budget XLR microphone, such as this one right here, from sounding something like this to sounding something more like this with a simple upgrade. The upgrade is the Fifine SC8. Now, the reason you'll need that Fifine SC8 is so that you take advantage of the full EQ option or features that the Fifine Genie has. You'll be able to turn any XLR from a cheap budget, terrible, muddy sounding microphone like this out of box to something that sounds a lot more professional or just way better with this combo of a setup. Let me show you how I set up my EQ from start to finish, just so that we get an idea of how to set up your XLR microphone the same way. Now, it won't be exactly the same because you're probably going to have a different XLR microphone. It's going to have a different sound signature. Your voice is going to sound different from my voice. So a lot of variables there, but for the most part, the general setup and settings and features that I use here with the Fifine Genie, you can apply to your XLR microphone to make it sound brighter if it's muddy, a little bit more bass if it's lacking bass, a little bit more mid-tone if it needs more vocal presence. So the first thing you want to do before you start setting anything up with your XLR microphone is installing Fifine Genie, obviously, and spend a little bit of money on this mixer because it's the way you're going to have to be able to get access to that Genie. So the first thing you want to do with a mic like this, which is pretty crappy in my opinion, is to check your gain levels in a couple of places. Gain is number one. Number two is proximity of your microphone. That's right. If your mic is placed properly and your gain and your noise floor is controlled properly, you probably won't even need like a noise gate or noise reduction. Microphone settings on desktop, and you don't want to really have that up to 100%. This can cause that kind of noise floor to come up, as well as distortion in your audio. So I try to keep about 75% or lower, 70, which is pretty good, and control my gain through other means. Then once you're done with that, you can go over to your mixer and set the gain on that, starting from 100 and bringing it down to where you sound pretty good and you see your levels of your audio. Let's bring up my OBS here real quick. Levels of my audio somewhere living in the yellow. And if I talk loud, it taps the red just a bit. Maybe do a recording, listen to it in playback, make sure you're not distorting or clipping. And in case you're wondering what mic this is a mic by Toner. I believe it's the 510 dynamic microphone, USB and XLR. So right now what you're hearing is the default audio of this microphone by Toner. And for the most part, in XLR coming out of box like this, it's pretty muddy, right? Very muddy, not very clear at all. It's missing a lot of that high end that you're just not going to get out of box, even connected directly through XLR to just about any mixer, right? So yeah, that's what you get. But with this application, you can make this come to life. A lot of different things going on with it. It's not just a EQ software. It has light controls. You can control the lights of your device. You have a virtual mixer here, which is pretty in-depth. Not going to do that for this video. We just want to talk about some EQ and how I get my audio to sound a little better, or sometimes a lot better with microphones like this. We came for the EQ, right? So we're here on a bland, flat EQ, right? You want to choose our SC8. What we want to do is switch over to input, because input is the microphone and that's what we want to EQ. Let's switch over to balanced, and already you'll see some audio changes here with this microphone out the box. Broadcast. So broadcast is going to bump up a lot of that bass, which I probably would not use. It's just so muddy. I would have to change some of this stuff. Clarity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Clarity, I think, is a really good preset here. If you think it doesn't have enough bass, you can easily just bump up some of that right here, right in your EQ settings, to bump up a little bit of that low end if it's missing that. But the clarity, as far as clarity is concerned, it sounds pretty crispy right here. Deep voice, super bassy and muddy. Don't like that. Flat. Flat is the initial. I don't know why they have that, and they have a flat as well, but the flat has all of these bands, which are 10 total bands. Less nasal, so you have a less nasally sound in your ear, but there's some sibilance there. I hear it doesn't sound good either. and walkie-talkie for some special effect in your streaming and your content creation if you wanted to, but we're not going to use that here. But just to show you how much you can change any microphone, you can do that with this. There's certain ranges here when you're discussing EQ that you don't need in your audio, especially for like a talking head, for example, or even singing for that matter. Just about any application, because really it's areas where people or normal people can't even actually pick up or hear, right? Or maybe you don't even want to hear those things in your audio. And those two areas are on the far ends of the spectrum, right? So we have the low cut or the high pass area down here on the far left. These areas you always kind of like want to slope down to get rid of anything past 20 hertz, 20 to 80 as low end rumble, things like your fan, your PC, your desk, your mic, things like that. You want to kind of get rid of that stuff. So going back to our EQ, first we're going to unlock it and we're going to apply that to this particular frequency right here. So you see everything is kind of going down the middle. We're going to I'm peaking. So you see when it's peaking, it creates the bell curve, right? So it kind of just creates these peaks like a mountain. We want to change peaking to low, not low. You can do low shelving too. Low shelving kind of does the same kind of effect somewhat, right? It brings that down, but it also like brings down everything past that point. But so does high pass filter. See, same thing, everything past that point. But with low shelving, you have the option to just pick some of that, not all of it. Right here, this is everything. With low shelving, you can kind of bring in some of those frequencies and just kind of bring it down the spectrum like that, right? See how you can go up and down? A little bit different there. So you may want to keep some of those low ends like that if for a microphone, maybe that's lacking in bass. But for now, high pass filter all the way. We want to kind of chuck that all the way over here to kill some of that low end rumble. If I go too much, you'll see that all my bass is gone and anything that was rumbling in my room, including my vocal bass, gone. So not too much. So looking here on our diagram, right? Where did our diagram go? Right, all this spectrum is rumble sub bass, anywhere from 20 to 70. So we can probably get away with like clipping off a lot of this low end without sacrificing our bass, right? So we're gonna go, where are we? Right here. I like to keep it down here so I know that this is where the low end is, and we'll cut off maybe just about that much, not too much, right? So we're cutting a little bit of that 70 to 100 off significantly enough anyway, right? So that's that spectrum. Then we get to the core vocal frequencies, which it shows 100 to 300 hertz. So this is kind of where a lot of your voice resides. So down here in these particular bands is where most of your voice may reside. So this should be on a bell curve. So you see if you raise that up, it's going to bring up a little bit of that vocal presence, maybe too much. It can also get a little boxy too. So you got to be careful with how you control this particular band here. This one over here is for introducing a little bit more bass if I needed it. And I can bring it up a little bit if I'm missing bass, but I don't really like that much bass, especially for talking head. That can get a little fatiguing, right? Especially it depends on your voice. Okay, so this is the vocal area we're talking about, right? The box region, 350 to 600 and 100 to 300. So it's a big region here. It depends on your voice. This area right here could be boxy, right? This is about 300 to 600. In this whole area, you can get boxiness right here. If you raise that up, boxiness, yep. Cardboard box, what? But sometimes you may want to even bring that down a little bit, as well as this vocal presence here down as well. Or you can even bring it up a little bit, but it sounds a little bit muffled for me, right? For this microphone anyway. So I probably would just drop that down just a little bit, but not too much. I would even change the peaking here. See how it's like kind of like peaking like that. It also kills off a lot of the fan I hear in my voice in the background here. And maybe bump up my bass just a little bit because I do want to have a little bit of manliness. What? So we're getting somewhere, right? Killing off the low end, but I feel like we need to get some of that high end in here a little bit. You don't want to cut off your boxiness too much because then you kind of just lose a little bit of your vocal presence as well. Your vocal presence lies in this particular area right here, at least the mid-range, your mid-tone. So not too much, right? And it also depends on your microphone. This is a pretty budgety microphone. Okay, back to our image. Mid-range bite. So it's kind of mid-range before you get into the high range, right? And that's this particular spectrum here, starting from 1K. Did it say 1K? Let's look at that. Oops. Starting from about 1 to 4 kilohertz, right? We're going to go straight into the middle and see what that does. So that's going to bring in some of that high end, not necessarily mid-tone, but it is in the higher range. So I'm getting a little bit more clarity kicking in a little bit here, right? These two right here. I probably don't even need this one. We can probably just right click and delete it. And just get this guy up a little bit higher. If we don't like the bell curve here, if it's too arched, right? Too archy, taking up too much of the spectrum, we can dial that down, right? Let's say 1, right? To make it sharper. And if you want to go even sharper, go 1.5 and dial in a very specific spectrum here and play around with what you want to open up here. I feel like it's muddy, but right here is where it's starting to open up, somewhere right here, right? So this is not so bad, pretty decent. A little bit of crispiness there. It's opening up. All right, not bad. Let's go back to our image. So now that we're getting into the high end, let's cut off some of this high range before we start bringing in some higher clarity into our voice, right? Which is the sibilance zone. Anything past 20, this range here, you kind of don't need, because that's going to introduce a lot of sibilance. For this microphone, it doesn't have so much. It's pretty muddy. But if I was to raise it like that, you can see Caesar ate a salad by the seashore with Susan in the sauna. This whole area right here is very sibilancy. So I wouldn't keep it as a peaking EQ. You want to change that to either low shelving or low pass filter, right? So we can Caesar ate a salad by the seashore with Susan in a sauna. There we go. Caesar. Now we're not squeaking our S's, but it gets a little muddy. So that's what these bands are here for. I feel like we probably don't need all of these bands either. This right here may be too close and probably redundant unless you're going to make them very sharp next to each other. So I'm going to right click and probably delete this one here and just utilize this one. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and see how much I can open up my voice here, because this microphone desperately needs to be opened up, to be made a little bit more crispy, to capture more of your enunciation and your pronunciation of words and letters, especially syllables. Kind of separate that. Sometimes you need that in that high and crispy zone. This is sounding okay, a little bit better, and it's opening up a bit more. Not so bad. I probably would just push that all the way up, because this microphone is just like in the dirt. What? It's okay, because yours might be as well, and you can open that way up like such. And if you feel like the bell curve is also too wide, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can bring that down to maybe a 1 and just pick a particular frequency, and you can kind of keep these down as well, right? And if you wanted to really bring that down, you could probably just add another node here and bring it down and change that to maybe a 2 peaking, right? And bring that bad boy all the way down like such. You hear that? It killed off a lot of noise, and I'm already getting a little bit more crispiness in my voice. Not a lot of sibilance. I'm getting a little bit of muddiness from somewhere. I can still hear it. It could be the bass, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe right here sounds good. This microphone really needs a lot of adjustment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That sounds okay. Let's bring it down just a bit. And then this we could bring down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we're getting somewhere with this microphone. So just to give you an idea of how the spectrums actually work, that whole diagram was cool, but to see it in action like you're looking at right now is probably something that's probably, I think, more helpful when you're listening for sounds or particular bands when you're speaking and versus like when you're not, or just like stuff that resides outside of your voice. It's good to have a good little spectrum analyzed like this, because then you get a better conception of how this kind of looks in terms of like sound. So referring back to that diagram that we had before, low end rumble down here on your left. So that is where a lot of those low rumbles, bass rumbling on your table, your fans and things like that reside, and you kind of want to cut those off, which is kind of what we did a lot. We cut a lot of that off, and my room has a lot of that. My PC's over here under my desk, and sometimes I hit the table and it rumbles. You see there when I bang the table? See how that low end just comes up? You can hear that, or at least you can see it. I don't know if you can actually hear it because I cut it off, but I can hear it. I can hear this microphone rattling too. Just banging the table. You see how that with that has nothing to do with my voice, because as I'm talking, you don't see any of those low ends come up in my voice. Even if I try to go as bassy as I can, I can't get any of those super low frequencies going towards the 20 hertz there on the far end, except for when I bang the table. It just like really cuts a lot of that stuff off. So not having that here in my EQ kind of helps out. But if I, confirm, I gotta unlock that. But if I decide I want to like bring that all the way up like that, right? That's a lot of rumble. Now it's open, it's available to hear. So if I hear that, and you can see it, how high up it goes. Now where my vocals reside, which is in the middle range here, right? Vocal frequencies, box region, but it's still your vocals, right? So you can sound very boxy in this very mid to, I guess, low end area. You can see how my midtones are coming up in the mid range, and I can totally just destroy that and take it all the way down. And it kills off a lot of that noise as well. And you see how much of that actually does not come through here when I bring it down super low. Doesn't sound so bad, but my voice seems like it's lost. So I need to bring a little bit of my voice back into it, not too much. Wow, I don't know what this was here. This is bass. Let's bring that down like such and bring in my voice just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. I can kind of cut off a lot of that boxiness because I feel like this microphone is very boxy. Right here, I think it sounds pretty decent. You let me know how the microphone is sounding so far. And you notice I bumped up here on the high end, sibilance zone and air region, right? I bumped that up because this mic suffers on the high end. It's very muddy. So I had to bring that up. But you got to be careful not to bring up your sibilance as well. You see that high end come up here on the analyzer? Very squeaky, sibilancy area. So you got to be careful when you're talking with your S's. What? And your EQ here. I could probably even drop it down a little bit. Sibilance sounds okay. But if I decided I wanted to like bring that all the way up higher, testing 1, 2, and change that to, I don't know, low shelving. Oops, not low shelving, high shelving. And bring that up like such. Now we got a lot more crispiness there happening on the high end. Super open. Some people may even just like this sound, except when you start talking with a lot of S's in your words. It not only the sibilants get worse, it also even kind of distorted the audio on that high end. So you got to be careful with that. Let's bring that down a little bit. Testing 1, 2. Test. A little better. Keeps it kind of crispy. You may not even want to cut that all the way down. This is where the shelving kind of helps out. So instead of cutting it all off, and a mic like this that suffers from just muddiness and not having very high frequencies, you can improve it if your mic is bad, like kind of like this one is, to make it sound a little bit more crispy. Bring up that high end, open it up a little bit, and just be careful with your S's as you're speaking. And if you're talking like this to the side, you can probably get away with having this high end as high as I had it, right? Maybe even bring this frequency up a little bit higher. Sibilance area to get it open and crispy. Not too bad, right? What do you think? I think it sounds okay. There's a little bit of bass there on the far end over there. And you can see the bass kind of kicking up here as I'm speaking, which is pretty good. I think that works if you want a little bit more bass in your voice and still want to have a little bit more crispiness here. So, and I think you can get away with this audio right here. It's pretty good. You might want to just export it, right? I would export this audio quality and just overwrite the one I have there. And as I go along, I just kind of I'm overwriting that same file as I'm hearing the sound get better and better. And I go, oh, I like this frequency even better as my default. Overwrite it, or just save an extra one and rename them to number 1, the best, number 2, okay, 3, trash. Why would you save a trash preset? What? Pre. Here are some of the final takeaways I think about all of this and what this can do for you with your microphone that may be super budgety or cheap or suffering, your XLR microphone, and you don't want to spend any more money on another microphone. I mean, if you don't have the SC8, you still got to buy it and spend money on that. So either way, you have to spend some money. But With the SC8, it gives you the flexibility of having a mixer already on board. And if the microphone you like is just way too budgety, you can get something a little bit more expensive, but not go crazy, because with the SC8, you can adjust the EQ of your next stage microphone and make it sound just a bit better. The way I kind of worked out this microphone, which sat in my closet for a while. I don't even know why I still have it. I didn't like it in USB, is even worse. Until you get your hands on an EQ, and here we can find ourselves being able to utilize a free EQ that Fifine offers, the Fifine Genie, and you can invest in something like the SC8, which is a pretty budgety mixer as well. And you get the options to have all of these EQ settings. And if you need an audio mixer, then you have a mixer there. And other stuff like noise suppression, which I just would not use the noise suppression that's built into the software itself. I would go with an external noise suppression like I'm using now in OBS, in case you're wondering which noise suppression I use mostly. But to make this part of your workflow in conjunction with OBS, because I think it's good, it can get your audio and everything dialed in pretty nicely, even with a cheap microphone like this that now it looks nice. I mean, overall, it's a nice looking microphone, right? Kind of a little bit of a resemblance of the Shure SM7B in a way, right? So as far as like for visual aesthetics, this microphone definitely will work for your setup like such, right? So don't worry about that. It has some on-board controls, but that's only for USB. It's not going to do anything in XLR. Resembles that of a Shure SM7B in a way, nice cylindrical shape. Not much going on, no buttons. So yeah, looks pretty good. And you can make it look nice with the Fifine SC8, or rather sound nice with the Fifine SC8. Now, the only gripe I have with this application is that it's a little buggy sometimes when you're kind of switching between EQs, and you might lose your EQ. So it's always good to save your EQ profile. But the other thing that I don't like is that it doesn't include things like limiter or compression or that kind of stuff, where you can fine tune your audio, right? Especially with compression and limiter, those like kind of the two of the main ones. It doesn't integrate, you don't have VST integrations for other voice effects, though it has some sound effects already included in it. You can't include any of your own. So it's limited in that. It basically does just straight EQ, and that's it, a parametric EQ. So that's kind of one of the cons of having this application, but otherwise it has plenty of bands, 10 bands that you can kind of just manipulate here across the entire, your vocal frequencies, right? And make your microphone sound pretty good the way I think it sounds pretty decent now. The monitoring itself is a little bit delayed, couple of milliseconds, right? I can talk now and hear myself, and I've been monitoring myself the whole time. Haven't been having any issues with stumbling or anything like that. So I would say don't spend money on a new microphone if you have a very budgety microphone the way I'm using right here. And go with a microphone or with the SC8 and adjust your EQ without having to buy new microphones, right? And when you're ready to buy a new microphone, guess what? You don't have to be super picky about it, especially if you're going to connect it via XLR. You can adjust your EQ with something like the Fifine SC8 and the Fifine Genie. Limited, but it does a really good job at doing what you need it to do. And from what I see here in my spectrums, it looks okay. This is the things that I need for this particular mic, but for another mic, it's going to be very different, most likely. If you want to take your microphone, your budget microphone, or any XLR budget microphone you have to the next level beyond what the SC8 and the Fifine Genie can do, you might want to check out this setup right here by Elgato, where you can control your EQ and plenty of VST effects, voice effects, limiter, compressor, things that the Fifine and the Genie don't provide just yet. Check out that video there and learn more about how to go a little bit more pro than kind of what I'm showing you here. All right, and I'll see you in that video later.